Welcome to Practical Shooting Fundamentals.
Practical shooting fun is everybody's favorite.
It is the fun and fundamentals. It's gonna be a fun couple days.
I put the mental into the fun.
Not wrong. What we have in store for you is a series of exercises. The exercises are going to focus on one thing at a time. The goal is, spoiler alert, by the end of tomorrow, you should have a really good idea of what your existing habits are and what things you want to change. We all have ways we do things now, whether it's good or bad, just the way you shoot now, the way you hold the gun, all that kind of stuff. You're likely to get feedback from one of us. Good cop, bad cop, worst cop, whatever. Some feedback on things you want to make for changes. We don't have any expectations that you're just going to be a new shooter instantly. Like, Ben told me one time to grip the gun this way and all of a sudden I got it. It won't really work that way.
That's not going to happen.
Sorry. I'm sorry to tell you the bad news.
There's no magic pills?
There's no magic, no.
I can give you some pills, but they're not going to help you shooting.
Ben could be your travel agent.
You
Go on a trip and not even leave the range. So anyway, we don't have any expectations that we give you one piece of feedback like you're a whole better shooter. It doesn't really work that way. By the end of tomorrow, you should have a really good idea of things you want to change about your shooting habits and how to make those changes. Like I said, we've got a bunch of different drills and exercises we're going to do. When we do those, we're just going to be focusing on one thing at a time. So for instance, if this morning we're doing marksmanship fundamentals, working on shooting the gun straight, we're talking about your grip, stuff like that, we're not going to care about how you stand. Like, that's not what we're talking about right now. Maybe tomorrow you're moving around while you shoot, your grip just goes back to the way it was, and then we're talking about your footwork. So it's just one thing at a time that we're going to be assessing. We don't expect you to be experts.
So what you're going to experience is we'll be working on one little element or one part of your technique, and it'll be like we're not going to focus on anything else. So when we're doing marksmanship fundamentals, we don't care how fast you draw. Like, we're not even going to assess that. But it'll be just one thing. But when we start working on something else, so let's say we start working on multiple targets, what's going to happen is you're just going to revert back to what you were doing previously, and that's okay. That's the way people work. It'll take a little bit of sustained practice on your own in order to build new habits. So for us, we're just going to focus on, like I said, like Joel's saying, one thing at a time, and then we expect that you'll revert to what you were previously doing when we work on a different skill set, and that's okay. You're not going to be able to fix like 6 things at once. No one can do that, and that is okay.
Yeah.
As far as the plan this morning, marksmanship fundamentals, it'll be everybody here for the morning, kind of crammed into one bay. We'll shoot in groups. We'll shoot in relays to try to make sure you're not kicking brass on each other to make it a little more comfortable. After this morning, we'll be using 2 bays, so like multiple bays, and doing more complicated exercises.
Another thing to pick up on, we'll be doing dry fire as a part of all the drills we do over the next couple days. So you should pick up on that. And we don't expect you can shoot as much ammo as you want. You guys were told what, to bring around 1,000 rounds?
Yeah,
15, cool. So I mean, you could shoot that. You could shoot more if you want. You could shoot less if you want to. You'll notice all the drills have dry fire components. We need to talk about safety, I guess.
Yeah, so for safety, we'll do USPSA range rules with a little modification. So it'll be, hey, make ready, and that means the people that are supposed to be shooting, whether it's 8 people or 3 people, whatever we have set up, all of those people, from that point on, they can handle their gun as and when they need to, as long as it's safe. And what we want is, like, you'll get a start beep, you'll shoot a drill, and then we want you to load up again if you have to. So don't unload your gun all the time. Just like reload if you have to, holster up, and get ready to do it again. And then we'll do a lot of repetition, and then when we're finished, all right, everybody unload, and everybody will unload together. Look around, be aware, make sure that everybody's okay, they're unloaded, the guns are put away, and then now we can go downrange. So think hot range, cold range. That's kind of what we're going to do. And when the range is hot, like again, we want you to keep the guns loaded and keep refreshing the gun so you can keep doing repetition.
So whenever we do a drill, you should just, if the line's hot, you should just have in your mind you're going to be doing it again.
Yeah.
So reload your gun, safety on, holster, whatever, so you're ready to go for the next iteration. The other thing is, if your red dots needs to get turned up, you got something like lens, whatever, if the line's hot and everyone's handling their guns, just fix whatever you need to do. If you need to go get a battery, unload and step away, that's fine. We don't want you to like raise your hand and be like, Ben, I need to turn up my red dot or something. Like,
Oh, they'll be like, okay, turn your gun up.
yeah, like when the line's hot and everyone's handling their guns, everyone's pointed down range, it's totally fine to doing those kind of things you need to do.
Does that work for everybody? Yeah. All right, we're gonna take a break around midday for a while for lunch. We'll give you a timeline. It'll kind of depend on how things go, and then you can leave to the property if you want. Come back, just be back when we're supposed to start. There really shouldn't be any problems. All right, any questions? No. Okay, we're gonna start just with slow fire group shooting, which we don't like to do very much of, but that's what we'll start with. So get your guns and gear, and we'll have everybody head on down there.
There's a couple things worth talking about. It's very easy to, what we're gonna do on the tone, you're just gonna draw your gun and you're gonna fire 10 shots into the center of target, shooting the very best group you could possibly shoot. We don't care about time, I just want you to try to stack shots. There's a couple common mistakes that are just worth talking about now, because I guarantee you somebody here is going to make them. The part that's maybe kind of a little bit counterintuitive is that everyone wants to focus on the aiming and think less about the feeling in their hands. So the aiming part's actually pretty easy. I just put my dot on the target, like no big deal. The problem is sometimes people get their sights, the dot where they want it, and then it turns into like a binary switch where the triggers, it's like either I'm pulling the trigger or I'm not. So the problem with that happens is when you aim, and they look like dot moving, dot moving. Oh, here it is, I got it, this is the spot. And then when they push the trigger, they'll like smash into the whole gun, or they push into the gun or influence it in some way. So instead of that, what I want you to do is just let your dot float in the center of the target. And while you're doing that, or your iron sights if you're actually cool, but while you're doing that, you'll see your sights, you know, like they'll move around a little bit as the wind blows, your heart beats, you know, whatever. And when you see that little bit of movement, spoiler alert, what you can do for that is absolutely nothing. There's going to be some movement in your sights. It's not going to be perfect. Instead, shift your focus to your hands and the feeling in your hands and think like, hey, you dumb idiot, don't push down on the gun. You don't have to call yourself a dumb idiot, that's just me. But then what I think about is just stacking the pressure. So my finger touches the trigger, and it's like 1 pound, 2 pound, 3 pounds, 4 pounds, 5 pounds. Sometime before the sun goes down, the shot's gonna break, and if you're kind of surprised, so to speak, when that happens, the bullet will go where you want. So the whole point is actually like putting your focus on your hand and just gradually rolling on the pressure, as opposed to like, I pull the trigger halfway, yep, sights look good, all right, now, like whammy, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, and then you start pushing on the gun. That make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we get everybody to line up on the blue line, please? Okay, we're gonna get going with marksmanship fundamentals. Previously, we're just making sure your guns are zero. That's essentially all we're doing. Look, I'll show you an exercise here. I want you to watch the gun. That's gonna be showing you what I want. So you can get a little closer if you want. I want you to see. Try this one.
That one instead.
Okay, so again, watch the gun here. That's gonna show you what I want. So what's happening here? So I'm going to draw the gun. Once again, no time limit for that. Why no time limit, anybody?
That's not what we're measuring.
That's not what we're measuring. I don't care. I want you to draw to a grip that you consider good, that you consider the grip you want. Okay, we're not assessing that first shot time. Okay, I'm going to put your sight in the center of the center of the target here, and then you're going to pull the trigger twice, about as fast as you can pull it. Okay. And then we're going to repeat that process for a total of 4 pairs, or 8 shots in total. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Now, you're going to shoot the gun faster than you're comfortable. We're forcing you to shoot the gun in a way that's uncomfortable. And this is so we can kind of more quickly assess what's going on with your grip. All right? So we're not really measuring the outcome here. Like if you're not shooting all A's, that is not a problem. Okay? What we want is that if you have shots going into the C zone over here, or going up and away, that you assess that. You're like, yep, I saw that happen. I understand what
let's
that
say
is.
Ben has a hit right here, and I walk up and I'm like, Ben, what happened with this?
Yes.
If Ben goes, I don't really know, I guess I should just slow down. That's not really productive for any of us. Like that, like, okay, great, Ben, I'm glad you're here.
So,
but if Ben's like, it was my second shot, I felt my hand clamp down and I felt myself push into it, I'm really sorry. It won't happen
You don't have to
again.
apologize.
Sorry.
Don't give a shit. Sorry.
That would be a really good answer, because then we can like, oh, Ben's paying attention. He felt his hands do that. He felt himself push into the gun.
Right. Is our goal here that you can see and articulate what's happening, even if you're not getting the outcome you want? Does that make sense to everybody? That's how you're going to improve. Okay, so let's start talking about how we're going to hold our guns. Everybody I see with their firing hand on the gun, it looks like this. Okay, high up on the back strap, hand like so. This is the position you see from everybody, yeah? Okay, the interesting question here is how much pressure. Okay, and what we want is that you hold the gun so that the gun doesn't move around inside your hand. Like, I can't feel the checkering of my grips. I can't feel the gun sliding around inside my hand, but I don't need to go any tighter than that. Okay, the tighter I hold with my hand, the more difficult it is to move my trigger finger quickly and independently. Okay, so you could think about it like you're gonna hold the gun as loose as you can with your firing hand. Okay, now your perception might be that you're barely hanging on to it, but the reality is that you're clamping on it pretty tight. So just be careful with that. Like, your brain, you're gonna think, I mean, a lot of people think like you need to death grip that thing to hang on to it. You don't. Okay, you just hold the gun so it's not sliding around inside your hand. Now with your support hand, what we're looking for you to do is make contact with the actual grip panel of the gun. Okay, so I want to make tons of contact in there. The easiest way to do that, I think, is run my hand into the trigger guard here, wrap my hand around and crush. And I want to feel the checker, or feel the grip going into my support hand. Okay, now with my support hand, nothing really bad is going to happen if I clamp really hard. I mean, I'm not using that hand for fire control. So I want to clamp onto the gun with my support hand really hard, okay, so that I'm making sure that the gun's not sliding around. Does that make sense to everybody? So think about it, hold, crush. That works for a lot of people to think about it like that. Okay, now common issues that you're going to experience on this drill. I want you to watch the gun as I do this. So again, watch the gun in my hand. What are you seeing happen there?
Your trigger finger's come completely off the trigger between.
Yeah, that's okay though.
You're pushing it down.
Yeah, like I'm pushing the gun. So you see the first shot would go straight and I push in for the second shot. Okay, that'll be the most, I mean, this is exaggerated as hell, but that'll be what most people do. Okay, another possibility will be this. All right, what are you seeing there?
Not letting the dot settle.
What's that?
Not
Not-
letting the dot settle.
No,
That's not an option.
his support hand was there for
Wait, wait.
decoration.
Hold on.
Oh, I got you.
Let
Yeah,
the
yeah.
dot cell, like,
Yeah.
what that, like, you don't let the, like, you're going to put
Because of the grip.
yeah, it's like, so yeah, you saw the gun behaving differently in my hand. So you're seeing the trigger guard coming off of my support. That's saying, hey, my support hand is not doing its thing and I'm not holding onto the gun. Okay? That'll be some very, very common stuff that happens. Again, slowing down to get a better result, we can always do that. We're not interested in that right now. We want you to shoot the gun really aggressively and understand what's happening. Okay?
A couple just big ticket items things. Notice the conversation comes up like, well, you know, call your shot or see your dot. Like, so what it is, to simplify it, is you're aiming one time and you're pressing the trigger twice.
Okay.
And it's going to be as fast as you can pull the trigger. And then we're going to start working through issues that are going to happen.
Okay, but will you be able to call your shots? Yes, so what's happening is you're going to be shooting, we call this predictive shooting. You're shooting so fast that you can't react to your sight for every individual shot. But that doesn't mean that you can't see where stuff is going. So you're committed to firing that pair. So go boom, boom, and you'll fire that pair. But what we want is that you'll see how your sight moves. Like if you're like, yeah, my dot went up, and then it came down and it slashed left low out of the window, then came back up. Like, you can't do anything to stop that in the moment. But if you see your dot do that, where are the bullets going to be? Again, up / left low. What is that? Come on. So it'll be one where there should be and one low left.
Right hand over Judson.
snatching the
down.
grip.
Yeah, but it's like like that's where it's like you see your dot do that, and it's like, huh, and then you see the bullets start to like some are in the center, some are low, and then as you're shooting, you'll pay attention to your hands, like, oh, I can feel myself doing that. That's kind of the idea here. Is you're going to shoot a lot of rounds, and it'll give you time to experiment and understand really, connecting cause with effect. Like, what am I doing on the inputs, and then what is the gun doing? And for us, like, again, when you can articulate what you're seeing, you're like, yeah, my dot did, like, it went up, and then slashed over to the right or whatever. You can connect that with where the bullets go.
The other piece of comments we got from everybody is like, Ben, you're snatching the trigger, you're letting your finger come too far off. Notice we're not talking to you about that at all.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to do prep and press, like whatever you want to do, like I don't care. That's cool. No, I don't have any. I don't care. So again, we're talking about the feelings in your hands, and when you draw the gun, keeping the same tension the entire time. Because if you start shooting and then your firing hand starts to clamp down more, that's when you saw those shots start to go. Or when you shoot more, maybe your support hand starts to give up, and it's kind of just there for decoration or emotional support. And the next thing you know, it's like, oh, okay, and then I got to clamp back down on this gun again. So it'd be drawing the gun, holding a grip and a grip pressure, and then keeping that pressure the entire time you shoot without having one hand do more or less.
Right.
And then separating the two between just holding the gun, just crushing the gun, and having two different levels of pressure. It sounds simple, but it's very difficult to do.
Yeah, so what we're looking for is that you're shooting and your grip, the way you're interacting with the gun, it is consistent. It's the same every time, okay? It is durable, meaning it's not changing as you're shooting multiple rounds, right? Most people, as you start to stack more and more rounds, like your left hand might just leave the exercise. Oftentimes your firing hand is going to tense up. We don't want that. We want it to be durable. It stays the same. And that if you're doing that, then your gun will behave very predictably, meaning you will understand how aggressively you can shoot and get the outcome you want. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Okay, we're going to be shooting in 3 relays. Each group will shoot that yard line, a bunch of rounds, like 5, 6, 7 strings. Then they'll unload, we'll get the next group up, and they'll shoot, and then we'll paste up together. Does that make sense to everybody?
So last thing, to briefly just talk about the drill again, we've been talking at you for a bit. You get on the tone, you draw the gun to get whatever grip you like. We don't care how fast you draw. It's 8 shots total, 4 pairs of 2 shots, and then the pause in between the pairs is important. So notice Ben was like, bop bop, pause, the gun quiets down, bop bop, pause, the gun quiets down. It's like bop 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 bop. We're not doing that.
That pause gives me a time to assess. What did I just see? What's happening? And then you'll feel a lot different. If you're just shooting a lot and you're constantly on recoil control, it's a lot different versus recoil control, not. Recoil control, not. Okay?
Then after your 8 shots, your holster up and we'll do it again.
Any questions? I know that's a lot of shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so for the back of your grip, you're pointing to like the edge of your CZ grip, the very back of it. Is that better than just, right there? Okay,
Yes.
yeah. Instead of pressing in, you're like getting to the very edge of it.
Right, so what I want to do is I have surface area here.
Right.
I want to use it.
Okay.
I don't want to be far, like when I see this,
Yeah.
there's a big gap there of surface area that I'm not using.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to get back on the gun. So I think it's a little bit overrated to be really high up.
Okay.
Instead, I want to grip the gun where I've got surface area. And again, the gun it'll behave predictably for me.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right.
All right, let's
Fired up.
get to it. Talk about something really quick. Like where we want your vision focused, I'll explain some things. We'll do a quick little exercise, and then we'll get back to doing the rapid fire pairs. Okay, the white pasters out there. That is a spot for you to put your eye on. Okay, so what you should do, whether you're shooting iron sights or a red dot, your focus should be on those white pasters. Those should appear clear. Everything else should appear blurry. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, now let me make an example for you. I want you to watch my posture as I shoot here. I'm going to shoot the gun a couple of different ways, okay? I'll get really wide, really aggressive muscle, and I'm going to focus on minimizing the rise of the muzzle, okay? So I'm going to use all the muscles in my body. You can see how tense I am as I'm doing this. doesn't move around a lot, and I'm using a lot of muscle. This is not what we want you to do. Okay, instead, I'm going to hold the gun with just my hands and my forearms. Look at a spot on the target. You can see I'm much more relaxed. You saw the gun moved around a little bit more in recoil, right? That second thing is what we want you to do, where you're just using your hands and your forearms to control the gun, but you see the gun bounce around a little bit more. Now, the reason we want that is it's important that the gun be predictable. It does the same thing every time. It is not important that you minimize the rise of the sight. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, you probably have it in your head you want to minimize the rise of the sight. Okay, and that, get the logic to that, but we don't want to worry about that. What you end up doing is pushing into the gun and pushing shots low. That usually happens. And then the other thing is you start using a bunch of muscle. It's going to make everything harder when we start shooting multiple targets. So if you're like transitioning from here to here, it's way easier. If I don't have tension in my body, I just look at a spot and the gun will go there, and I focus on holding it with my hands. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? So like conceptually, don't worry about minimizing the rise of the gun. Okay, we want it to behave predictably. Okay.
Another thing that's been happening quite a bit with a few of you is you'll shooting and you go like bam, 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 like this, you go bam, bam. If you're that person, I won't point anyone out or make fun of anybody specifically, but that would be trigger freeze. And what that is while you shoot, people telling them, nodding their heads. While you shoot, maybe you have a grip you have, but after you start shooting a little bit and the gun's going off and you want to stop it from recoiling, your firing hand tightens down more and more, and then you get to a point where you pull the trigger and then you kind of release it a little bit or try to, but you clamp back down again, and then it's like the gun doesn't reset. You're trying to fight it or just way too much firing hand tension. So notice the grip we've been talking about where you just hold the gun with your firing hand and then really lock down hard with your support hand. If you keep your firing hand nice and relaxed, that'll make it easier for you to pull that trigger twice really quickly without having your whole hand clamped down or where the gun won't reset.
How about this? While we were shooting those strings, how many of you felt your grip change in some way from first shot to last shot? Just raise your hand. Right. It's
Didn't feel it, but it probably happened.
Right. Yeah, but probably your job is to feel it. Right? So while we're shooting, it's we're not worried about the outcome, but that means when you're what you should be having those moments oh yeah, as I'm shooting, I can feel my hand just by firing is just taking over. Right? Once you start feeling that happen and it annoys you, you'll stop doing it eventually.
Another thing that I've noticed with some of you that I've been talking to is you draw the gun to start shooting, and it's boom, boom, whoa, whoa, and and then you decide to clamp down after that, and then we actually see the gun recoiling way differently. Call that dry fire grip's the term we use.
Yes.
Where you practice in dry fire, you're oh yeah, I'm so quick, I whip the gun out of the holster, I look around, but you're not really holding the gun properly. Yep, more heads nodding. But then when you're firing live ammo, it starts to go, oh boy, oh, okay. Then you got to clamp down and actually hold on to the gun properly. That's the thing that can happen.
That's why we're not assessing the draw time. We want you to draw and get a grip that you judge is good and start from there. We can work on doing a faster draw later, but right now we want you to get your grip right.
So you draw to the pressure you want and you keep the pressure the whole time, as opposed to drawing the gun loosely, and then once it starts going off, you're oh, and then you start to adjust your grip, modify it.
Okay, so we put down these points here. This aim point, the white paster, you need to drive your eye to that. That should appear clear. Your gun should appear blurry, always. Does that make sense? You're fixed on that white paster, and it's you'll see your sight kind of dancing off the paster, but you don't focus on the sight itself. If we could do a little exercise, let's get everybody up onto the line. You're gonna need your guns. We're not gonna fire any ammo. This is just dry only. That's why we can have everybody. What I'd like you to do is draw your gun and aim at that white paster on the target. So draw your gun, aim at that spot. We'll no matter what, keep your gun held on that spot. Draw your gun, aim at the spot, please. Focus on that white spot. Do not focus on your sight. Hold your gun there. Hold your gun there. So as we keep doing this, keep focused on that spot. Keep focused on the spot. Don't look away. Now I want you to intentionally shift your focus. Now stare at your sight. Stare at your red dot or stare at your front sight. Anybody, what are you noticing happen now?
Coming
See,
off
two
of the
targets.
tape.
What's that?
Coming off of the tape.
Keep looking at the...
It's moving around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it appears to move a ton more.
Yeah.
It makes your job harder. And you've been only doing this like 20 seconds. All right, now shift your focus back to the target. Intentionally shift your focus to the target is clear now. Now you notice how the sight quiets down a lot, huh? Yeah? All right, you can holster up. You made the point there. So that white spot, that gets your attention, okay? The more you try to focus on the sight and chase that, especially in recoil, like it's dancing in recoil and you're visually chasing that thing, it's not gonna work well. You focus on the white thing and the sight will come to you. That's what we want. Okay, does that make sense, everybody? Okay, now we've just backed up. We're just gonna go back to shooting those rapid fire pairs. We're gonna do that. And now that we're further away, we're just gonna see those mistakes a lot more clearly.
Do you mean to tape
Yeah,
that
we're not
target?
changing the trigger speed.
Do you mean to tape that target?
No, that's Kim's
No, it's
target.
fine.
You screw him.
That was fine.
We don't like that, dude.
Trigger speed, like how fast you're pulling the trigger, is still as fast as you can possibly pull the trigger.
Yep.
So some of you have these like nice little tight groups. It's like, hey, is that as fast as you can pull the trigger? And you're like, no. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Like, that makes two of us. So it'll be pulling the trigger absolutely as fast as you can.
Okay, let's get, what, Brown?
Perfect.
Brown, come on up. Everybody else is shooting those rapid fire pairs. And you're probably starting to experience now where you're fighting with the gun, right? You can nod your head if you're, yes, you're ready to fight with the gun. Okay, we're gonna return to doing that drill in a second, but first we're gonna do a little awareness exercise so you can understand how little you need to fight with your gun. The exercise is pretty simple, okay? What I'm gonna do here is look at my white spot on the target. I'm gonna mount the gun. Now watch what I do with the gun. I'm gonna fire one shot. The gun goes up in recoil and I'm not going to return the gun. I'm just gonna let it recoil and do nothing. So you saw it went up? Okay. So what I want to understand how much the gun actually goes up in recoil. Okay, now I'm gonna keep looking at that white spot. I'm gonna fire one shot. And I want the gun to come back to that white spot. But that's it, no more. Does that make sense? If I focus on the red dot and I try to drive it back down, watch what happens. What are you seeing there?
Going too far down.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're just firing that one shot, you're gonna see how the gun's behaving. And what you're gonna find right away, as you kind of explore this a little bit, you're like, man, as soon as I have it in my head, I'm gonna push on the gun, like it's gonna be too much, okay? Now, here's a question for you. Should my gun, should my sight go back down below that white dot?
No.
No. If it does, like I'm doing that, okay, and that's too much, okay? You will find just experimenting, like I said, just explore this. You're like, oh, it's very little effort. It's like I'm gonna look at that spot, it's like boom. And if also you'll find if I focus on my sight and I have it in my head, I'm gonna drive the sight, that also is gonna be too much. This is why, as you play with this, you'll understand why we're saying to you is like we want the gun to be predictable the way it behaves, but don't worry too much about how much it rises. Okay, it's going to be different based on how heavy the gun is and how hot the ammo you're shooting is. It'll behave different, but what matters is that it's predictable and that you're not fighting with the gun. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? So we'll go back through the relays real quick and just have everybody try this. Again, just explore it. It's not a performance exercise. You don't have to shoot like a certain number of rounds. We just want you to understand. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yep.
All right, cool. You can gather around and come on closer, folks. Don't be shy. No one's going to bite you.
Ooh, not that close. All right, time to do a new drill. I'm gonna shoot the drill first. That'll give us stuff to talk about. Don't worry about the target. Just watch the gun, if you would. That'll be the interesting part we'll be talking about. Okay, so when was I firing the next shot? How about as soon as the sight returns, the gun goes off? That's the time limit for everyone. That's regardless of how you feel about it, if you're D-class or you're a national champion level guy. That's the goal. What we were just doing, think about that. That was predictive shooting. So you aimed once and you pressed the trigger twice. And with training and experience, we could predict where the shots were gonna go.
Here's a good example. So how far away could you get and still be, ripping as fast as you could pull the trigger? It depends on your experience, your equipment, right? We've got one guy shooting a compact carry gun. We've got some people shooting heavy competition with an open gun here. Though you could probably have backed up further and be very comfortable. Boom, boom, and you know that the gun's going to be returning. And guys shooting like carry guns or duty ammo somewhere in the middle. You learn how the gun's going to behave shooting aggressively like that. Okay.
Now we're switching gears to reactive shooting. What that means is I react to every sight picture. And the way to think about the sight, if you're shooting a dot, it's like a bouncing ball. As soon as it returns, I'm pressing the trigger, whether it's the front sight or your dot. The wrong way to do this would be like, think about what we did with the group shooting, where you shoot, your sights come back down, then you look at it, you're like, yep, looks good, I guess I'll start. We're not doing that. So think about using this in the context of USPSA shooting. You want high accountability, but think about if there's a head box at 15 or 20 yards, or there's a tight partial target or a tuxedo. You probably wouldn't be like, a tuxedo at 25 yards, you wouldn't be like, all aim one's like, whoop up. I'll be like, whoop, hope I hit it. Like, nobody do that, right?
Well,
some
people might do that.
That would not be something I'd recommend. So when you're shooting that head box, you would press the trigger, the sight lifts, it comes back down, you see the sight a second time, and then you press the trigger. So I'm reacting to each sight picture, and I have a high amount of accountability for where the bullets are going. Okay? I'm gonna shoot again and do some, kind of like what we did earlier with the measurement drill. I'm gonna shoot one shot, let the gun return, and I'm gonna shoot another shot. Okay, so with this light plastic gun, the gun recoiled from there up to the neckline. So, Kim, move up a little bit, please, sir. All right. So from all the way back here with this light plastic gun, how much do you think this amount of movement takes? How much muscle? How about basically none, right? And think about what we did back there, the drill where we had you, like how much pressure you put into the gun and how much it took to return. This sounds really crazy, but I want you to actually return the guns just with your eyes. So all I'm gonna do is just stay staring at the point I wanna hit and let the sight just come back there. I don't have to like push into it or shove into it or do any kind of magic. So all I'm doing here is just standing here trying to be cool, shooting 6 shots, and I just keep staring at the point I want to hit, and by looking at that point, the sight will just keep returning to where I want. I don't have to put any extra force. Bad things that could happen if I shift my vision onto my sight is it'll just start recoiling, and as long as I see brown target behind it, like who knows where it'll go. It'll just go off into the wilderness. So we'll be talking about it a lot. The power of your vision is really important, and you're going to hit where you look, which we'll continue to expand on. So it's really important that I stay looking at the target. The target's clear in my vision, in my dot or my, your rear side or front sight, all that's blurry. Because I'm looking at where I want to hit, not watching my dot and seeing wherever it goes in recoil.
I'll make a couple bad examples for you. I'm very good at that.
You're good at that.
All right, so you can tell me what I do wrong if you don't mind.
Happy to do that, Ben.
What did I do wrong? Yeah, and this is going to be super common. I'm looking at that white spot. The gun comes up. I see red on white. My focus shifts to red. Now, the reason the shots track up is because the target becomes blurry behind the gun, and I fire the shot and I see the dot come back. I'm like, yeah, I see red on brown, like I'm good, right? Boom, fire that shot. Red comes back, red on brown, and yep, I'm good. And what happens is over time, these shots kind of work their way up because I'm not referencing back to this aim point. I'm just seeing brown behind red. If you see shots start getting thrown up high, you should start getting suspicious. Like, hey, I'm looking at my red dot. All right, I'll do another bad example for you.
Always count on Ben for a bad example.
I'm good
with
at
life
that.
advice and shooting. And haircuts.
Drugs.
Pretty obvious what's going on there, right? There's where my whole hand takes over. Okay, now one more bad example here. All right, what was wrong with that?
Very nice.
Over
That's just-
confirmation,
that's
yeah.
Too slow. We're
so
not.
that a lot of people will do that. They're not getting the result they want. So then they'll shoot, and I'll see the sight come back, and then the sight's just sitting there, kind of doing nothing. Then I press that shot off. Like, we don't want that. Like Joel said, we want that bouncing ball. It's like the sight's just going to stay in motion, and we're going to try to shoot that aggressive pace. You're still going to be have time. You're going to react to what you're seeing, but we want it to be very immediate. Everything happening immediately. Okay.
One thing we've continued to talk about is where you put your focus or kind of where your attention goes. When you do this drill, I think it's really, really good to put your attention on your firing hand, thinking like just press the gun straight, don't push into the gun. So the feeling in your hands, just like the previous drill, it's not like there's a perfect score, or if you have one that's down and be like, you know, hey, what happened on this one? You'd be like, oh yeah, I feel that feeling in my hand. I can tell I'm doing that. That's what we're going for. So it's not like if you have a Charlie or a bad person or something. We're just, like, the whole goal is learning. This drill and the previous drill, there's not like there's a perfect score. Regardless of what you get, it's gonna be like, all right, well, either you fix something or you go faster. Okay? All right, Ben, anything else?
Oh, I think we nailed it.
All right. We will line up with the...
We're going to carry on with these drills we're doing here, but we got to talk about some vision issues. Mr. Park, will you show the occluder?
All this is just, I mean, this is a fancy cover, but otherwise you could just use tape. All this thing does is when I'm looking through my optic, I see this black backer, so it prevents me from like looking through the window and staring at the dot.
Right, so the reason that he has that on there is, again, so if he focuses on the dot, the black backer will shut down his view of the target, and it doesn't stop you from dot focusing. It just indicates to you when you do. How many of you find yourself flipping back and forth between focusing on the white spot on the target and focusing on your sight? Okay, I should see every hand.
There's either like people that do it, like people, you're gonna do it one way or the other. The question is like, do you know you're doing it or not?
Right, and then you work to mitigate it and do better with it. So, like, that's why we're talking about the sight. You should, like, if you were shooting a red dot sight, we'd happily occlude your sight for you to help indicate to you when you're focused on the red dot and not the target.
I just use electrical tape. It's
You
like,
can also play with the brightness of your dot. How bright should your dot be? See, like most of your instinct is to make it as bright as it'll go. Yeah. All right. So what we want is that you look out into the, at the target, and the red dot is red. It's very apparent it's there, but it's not so bright that it pulls your attention onto it. Okay. So playing around with the brightness is an important thing. If you're shooting iron sights, I have a Sharpie here. What I recommend is using the Sharpie to dull both the top and the front of the fiber, so I can adjust the brightness of the fiber. So again, I should see this red or green. If you're using that, that's fine. I should see the color on the sight post, but it shouldn't be bright and popping off of the sight post. Why? Because that's going to suck my eye onto that sight. Okay, that's not what we want. I want to look at that white spot. I'm looking through the outline of the gun, and I can perceive the color of the sight or the color of the red dot, and I'm aware of what its position is relative to that white spot, but it doesn't pull my attention onto it. Does that make sense to everybody?
This happens very commonly when people perceive the shot difficulty to be more difficult, or they want a higher level of accuracy. Notice, like we just did the first yard, or like the 5 yards for this drill. It's really easy when you're trying to shoot accurately to, like, at first you're seeing this, and then the more you're like trying to hit a small spot, it's like your vision gets smaller and smaller, and like, oh, I guess I am staring at the sight. When you're trying to, like, or think about you're trying to hit a small target away out, a mini pop or whatever, it's really easy to, like, you're running around, you see all this, and then when you really want to have a high level of accountability, it's really easy to, like, tunnel vision in on what you're looking at.
Right.
So again, the occluding thing, like, that way it just keeps me, I like stare looking at the target I want to see. One side I see the black backer and the red dot on it. The other side, other eye sees everything, and my brain kind of just puts them together.
Okay, so if you find your eyes getting drawn onto the sight, or if we're watching and we start getting suspicious about that, we're going to start adjusting the brightness of your iron sights and occluding the red dots to help you work through that issue. It's just an indicator to you that you're doing that. And again, that's something we want to work through. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, we're gonna. Sorry, Joel.
Looking at the targets, mainly if you're a right-handed shooter, we'll see the shots start to trend up and to the right. And like if we see shots going up in this direction, especially when we get back at distance, that's a very good indicator. Like I can just look at the target and be like, yep, that's probably what's happening.
Okay.
That'd be a really good way to, check yourself before you wreck yourself, as they say.
All right, so we're gonna carry on with that 6 shots, the reactive shooting drill. We're gonna back up to the yellow cones, and again, we're gonna start getting really sensitive about your vision and making sure that you've got it fixed on the target, not on your sight. Okay, cool.
Bingo, bango.
Okay, let's do some dry fire. Let's talk about how to do this.
Well, we've had some fun conversations where people saying like, well, I don't see that in my dry fire. That would be some things to catch on that you're maybe not doing your dry fire correctly.
I said by definition, it's wrong.
Well, we could take a medium stance, like maybe it's not.
It's wrong. It's fucked.
It is. So, yes, notice all the issues we've been having here. You should be able to replicate that at home. In your... Are basements cool around here? You guys have basements? No. Nobody has basements. Sorry. In your dry fire area, wherever. All right. In your barn.
Yes.
Or in a field, wherever you dry fire at, out in the front yard.
I was 35 years old.
All right, I'm gonna show you a fun little dry fire drill. Just watch the gun, and you'll notice as soon as I get the beep, I'm gonna press the trigger immediately. Watch what happens to the gun this time. Like nothing. That looks okay. Now, how about this time? Like, it only moved a little bit though. It wasn't bad, right? And then if you take that little bit, and then you go out to the target, you're like, oh, what do you know? They move just a little bit, and that's where my bullets are impacting on the target. There's a couple things to talk about when doing this drill. Notice when I'm aiming, I've got the proper grip I want, and then when I hear the beep, like you hear the buh, I'm reacting immediately, pressing the trigger as soon as I can. A wrong way would be I can make it look very nice if I wait. I get the beep, I add some pressure. Like, oh man, I'm so good. Like that's not really productive for anyone.
We hate that because so many people do dry fire and they just do it slow. Okay, press the trigger, nothing moves. Like this, they're just focused.
Like, hey, look
on,
guys, Ben's dry firing. Yay!
Right, and this is why I said, hey, if you can't replicate a problem you're having in dry fire, your dry fire is wrong by definition. Okay, so what we're doing aggressive, like performance shooting. You need to be able to pull the trigger quickly without anything moving, and that's why we're going to force you to react to a beep and pull the trigger right away. But you should apply this thinking to all of your dry practice. If you're not replicating a problem that you know you're having live, like then your dry fire is wrong. One thing a bunch of you've experienced. How many of you draw the gun and start shooting, and then the gun's not behaving, and you add in pressure to the grip, then the gun starts behaving itself? That's a bunch of people, right? What are you doing wrong in dry fire to cause that? Yeah, so it's very tempting. It's at home, like I'm not shooting ammo, so if I just whip the gun out fast, like okay, yeah, I'm working on my draw. But
one reload one.
Yeah, but I have to be enforcing the correct grip pressure, or I'm gonna build bad habits.
Or I had a good conversation on this side where it's like, hey, at the end of your dry fire, your hand's really tired. I'm like, yes. Like if you dry fire for 15 or 20 minutes, like my hands are done. Like you can see I pull skin off the back of my firing hand for how hard I grip. My hands are tired, or maybe I start like shake at the end, my hands are done. Like that's all I've got. So if I dry fire for an hour and at the end, I'm watching TV and maybe I go get a snack, whatever, it's like, yeah, like that's not productive. You're not gripping the gun the way you would be if you're firing live ammo. So we should be replicating, mistakes we see out here, and then also, working to build the correct grip. Draw the gun, I have the correct tension, and that just becomes a habit.
Would the recommendation in that scenario, if your grip is done after 20 minutes, to stop dry firing after 20 minutes so you're not reinforcing that habit?
As opposed to continue dry firing with wrong grip.
Correct. I would, okay.
The other conversation we've had is like using, well, like some people might like the captains at Crush, like I'm gonna do special workout routine so I can grip the gun harder. Like I'm not really physically fit or athletic, and
or smart.
Or smart, but
he's not talented in any way, and he does well. This should make you all feel confident.
This is true. I just go to dirt pits and shoot guns. You're a real friend. At least I have a good haircut and not dumb sunglasses.
God damn, dude.
Okay, no, but just using those muscles in dry fire, like at home we got snow today. So like if I take time off, or if you take a little bit of time off, when I like start back up my dry fire after taking a couple months off, I'm like, man, I can't grip the gun that hard. And then I just keep using those muscles. And after a week, you know, of dry fire every single day, that's like, oh, I'm like the strength comes back. You're just using the muscles. So like trying to use like the Captain's a Crush or some like special workout, you could just hurt yourself. Like I wouldn't recommend doing that at all. You know, with tendinitis.
So we're gonna work from the green line. We're gonna do that trigger control drill. We'll do it dry, then you'll load up and do it live. Each relay will do it. Then we'll return to that 6-shot reactive shooting drill. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes.
How much pressure on this drill? Are you touching? Are you against the wall?
Oh, that's a good. So I think it should vary. As your finger gets closer to the trigger, the drill gets easier. The farther away your finger gets from the trigger or outside the trigger guard, then pressing trigger, it's way tougher. So I think it's a good idea to do like, you know, for today you can do whatever you want, but like in dry fire, maybe you start with your finger just out of contact, maybe it's in contact, maybe it's towards the front of the trigger guard.
I don't let people start this prep.
No.
So you can't start with the trigger prep because that's like a different thing. The skill, if you're gonna prep and press, that's fine, but the skill you want is to prep and press quickly at speed. So if you start with it prepped, you're not, like it's not gonna simulate what you're trying to do.
And think about like drawing the line. So if I'm gonna shoot that target from here, like I would look at the spot, the gun gets there, when the sight looks the way I want, I'm just gonna smash the trigger. Like I wouldn't do like, oh, I'm gonna prep and press, or I'm gonna like, you know, slowly stack on the pressure. Like, no, are you kidding me right now? I'm gonna see the color of the sight on the target, I'm just gonna smash the trigger. So that's what I wanna work on in dry fire. I hear like the buh, and then I just jam the trigger.
Okay.
Cool, all right. Well, let's have the first relay. Gather around. This will be kind of a fun drill that combines what we did this morning.
It's not that fun.
I think it's kind of fun. I'm going to use the upper and lower A zones and then just shoot them in different orders. So I'll shoot the drill real quick and then it should make sense. So the thing you notice, the lower A zones as a group get shot how?
Faster.
How about as fast as you can press the trigger? Then notice when I switched to the head box, you saw a difference in my shooting speed, right? So it's like sight, press, which would be a combination of the two drills we did this morning. Let me do the drill a wrong way, and then you tell me what's going on. All at the same speed, right? So we should see a speed difference where it's like aggressive predictive shooting, then controlled reactive shooting with a high amount of accountability.
That's very difficult for people to do, is to change how they're addressing the targets on the fly. Obviously, we need to be able to do that.
Common things that happen are, think about earlier where we were shooting up, especially from the close, the rapid fires, where people would get the trigger freeze, so their firing hand clamps down and they can't release the trigger to fire the next shot. Or when you perceive the shot to be difficult, remember we moved back at the 6-shot drill where it was really easy, like relax your grip, or some people started staring at their sight, like all kinds of bad things that can happen. So it's super important just to look at the spot you want to hit, like we did earlier, and then you want to try to keep the same tension. So not tensing up your shoulders, not clamping down. You just draw the gun, you have a grip on the gun, and that grip stays the same the entire time you shoot. I don't care about the order. You can go like upper, lower one's upper, whatever.
Okay. One thing to point out, you'll notice Joel's not just shooting at the heads. Most people in a USPSA match, they're happy with hits anywhere on the head box. That's not what we want. Actually make an attempt to hit the credit card. Right? We're trying to shoot A's.
Feedback from us will come in 2 different ways. If you're doing something, not what we want, you're gonna get a correction. If everything looks nice, the feedback you'll get is go faster. So I'm really sorry, there's no winning.
Yeah, well,
And when you go just a little bit faster, whatever that means to you, maybe that means pull the trigger faster, maybe, who knows? Then something will likely break and then we'll work on addressing that to fix that part. Sound make sense?
any questions? Okay, one thing, the relays from this morning, that is dead. All right, so we'll have half the group shoot at once, then the other half. Okay.
Cool. Let's do it.
Gather around, folks. You will not need ammo right away. Just come on over.
Is it okay? Sorry.
Okay, not to be like weird, but you guys come over here. Okay, we're going to talk about confirmation. It's a little bit different than aiming. So we like the word confirmation. Actually, Kim came up with it because he's smart. And I stole his ideas because I'm also smart, just in a different way. So,
I think that's called piracy.
yes. Who has all the gold, bitch? The pirates. Exactly. Okay, so you think of aiming like, oh, I want to shoot something over there, and then you bring your gun over, and then you kind of adjust your sights, like, oh, okay, there it is, boom, and then shoot. So it's like, oh, there's something I want to shoot. No, we don't aim. All right, now we're good, and shoot. But that doesn't really look like a high-level person shooting USPSA, does it? No, they don't really spend time aiming in that way. Like, they're not sitting there like messing with their sights a whole lot. Really what happens is with a lot of training, people develop an index. That's the word we use for it. So you draw the gun, you hold it the same way every time, and what ends up happening with just a few weeks of practice, it's like you'll look at a spot, gun comes up, you grip it the same, and the sights show up more or less on that spot. And then what you do at speed when you're speed shooting is you're just going to confirm that your sights are indeed pointed where you think they are. Okay, so let me make an example for you. Joel, if you want to give me a timer. So you think like traditionally you're gonna get a perfect sight picture. So my dot stopped and stable looks like a red dot, or my iron sights equal height, equal light, you know, my perfect sight picture. That's what you think that you're gonna do all the time. So
right.
Let's make an example.
Stand by. Stand by. Stand by.
Okay, so what's the time there, Joel?
0.95.
Okay,
Ooh,
so
great.
that's the time, whatever the hell that means. So I'm starting with the gun down at a 45-degree angle at the tone. The sight comes up to where my vision is. My vision is fixed on this white paster. When I get that perfect sight picture, which is dot, stopped and stable, looks like a dot. Then I fire the shot. So that's what I'm doing. Obviously, we don't need that level of precision for what we're asking you to do.
Or if you're cool, this would be front sight in between the rear notch, equal height, equal light.
Yes. So normally we're going to ask you to do color confirmation, which is just see the color of your optic anywhere near that spot that you're looking at, or you see your sights superimposed on that spot and you don't respect the alignment of the front sight of the notch. You just perceive the color. You get, yep, color of front sight is up there, superimposed around that spot, and I'll react to that and shoot. Okay.
All right, stand by. Stand by. Stand by. Stand by. Stand by. Stand by.
All right, we'll do one more.
All right, one more. Stand by.
Okay, what's the time there?
0.60.
Okay, so you can see I'm cutting like 0.3 of a second off every time. Am I losing some precision? Yes. Is that okay? Yes, because, you know, for our scoring system or whatever, that's going to work for us. So I'm just coming up to yep, color confirmation. That's what we're going to ask you to do for like 80% of the shots you shoot. It's just color shoot. Now, what's hard for people to do or to really understand is you're going to always direct your attention to a small spot, always, but you're going to react to something different based on what you need the bullets to do. Does that make sense? Like, I'm still looking really tight, it's just I see red flash around there, then shoot. Now most people, when you tell them to go fast visually, what they start doing is like anywhere on brown. They just look at brown and shoot, and the hits open way up. What we want is when you're shooting really fast, really aggressively, you're still looking for small spots, like inside of the brown. It won't take you any more time. You're just going to get a better outcome. Okay, does this make sense to everybody? Okay, now there's one other thing that you can do, and that's shoot without even seeing the sight. So I'm just going to bring the gun to the target line and just based on my body's alignment, then pull the trigger. Okay. Mr. Joel, will you give me a time for this?
Stand by. Stand by. Stand by. Stand by.
All right, what is the time for those, Joel?
They're around 0.5, 0.6.
Okay, as you can see, I gain a little bit of time, but I have no accountability. Like, I couldn't tell you where those were going. And I'm standing here, like, kind of indexed on this target. If I'm under stress, like moving around or the target's moving or something, like, forget it. The lesson there is, it is tempting to shoot without seeing your sights, but it doesn't really take more time just to see that flash of color. So you should be doing that, okay? Does that make sense to everybody? What we're gonna have everybody do now is this drill, this confirmation drill. We're gonna do it 2 ways. It'll be perfect sight picture up here, and then flash of color down here. And that's what we want, just like beep, gun comes up, flash of color, shoot. Okay, any questions? All right, cool. We'll put down these white pasters and then we'll get to it. All right, folks, I'll make a couple examples for you. The exercise we're doing over here, this is gonna look like a movement thing. We're just focused on the vision component. We're gonna shoot the left target from the left side of the barrels, the right target from the right side of the barrels. The other 2 targets get shot in between the barrels, and you're gonna start standing so I can see this target on the outside, and this barrel is blocking the targets on the inside. I can't see them, and I don't, and then I'm far enough off the barrels that it's not gonna interfere with my gun. Okay, so once again, left target's left side, right target right side, center target's to the center. Start standing so I can see the outside targets, but not the ones on the inside. Okay. Let me make a couple examples for you. Pay attention to my body language here. It's going to tell you a lot. That's one way to do it.
Yawn.
It's obviously not what we want, but it's
all right.
one way. Okay, so let's talk about the differences between those 2 runs. The first run, what did you notice, or what jumped out at you?
Like you look down. It was tense.
Yes, so I was really exaggerating it, but what I did there was that I drew, all my attention shifted to the gun. So I draw, I'm looking at my gun, then I'm like, where's my dot? Where's my dot? Oh, okay, there's my dot. And I'm just staring at that red dot, and I never let go of it. So visually, I connected to the tube, and I never let it go. And then you could see when I was walking through here, it was pretty slow, wasn't very precise. And then I was also over-confirming, whereas I'm seeing that red dot come back and look like a dot, and then I give myself permission to fire the next shot. Some version of that is what a lot of people here are going to be inclined to do, okay? Now, why don't I want that? Why don't we want to be like, hey, I got to find my red dot, like, and then shoot? Why is that bad? Slow as shit.
Well, you guys do deer hunting here, right? That's cool. Like, imagine turning your 3 to 9 up to 9 power, and then you just like walk around the range with the 9 power scope all day. Like, that's basically what he was doing. He has no awareness of anything else that's happening, and he just like walks around looking through this little tube, and nothing else. He's aware of what's going on.
Right. That is not what we want. It's the second example. My head stayed up. I'm looking for the target. Then the gun came up to my vision. As soon as I saw that flash of red, I'm going to react to that and start shooting. Based on training and experience, I could do that aggressive, predictive shooting. I can pull the trigger quickly, and I know that I'm going to have control over the gun because we've done that training this morning. We did those doubles. I know I have control over the gun. Then I'm going to look for the next target. I'm not going to look at the barrel. I'm not looking at the gun. I'm looking for the target. I mean, the target's back there somewhere, and I'm just looking for it, right? So the barrels were never clear. The gun was never clear in my vision. I'm looking through this. I'm looking for the target. When I saw the target, then I saw red flash where I was looking. I reacted immediately to that flash of red. Okay? That style is what we want. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, with all that being said, why would I say this is a vision drill and not really a movement thing? Yeah, you're gonna walk through here and shoot, but it's a vision drill.
Some targets you don't see, some targets.
Exactly. This is like this is like 80% of what you see in a USPSA match these days. You're kind of slow walking through there. Targets are appearing and disappearing behind the walls, and you're just looking for spots. Yep, that's what I want. That's where I want to send those bullets. And you visually locate that spot. The gun goes to where your vision is, and then you shoot. Okay, that's what we're looking for here. This is a vision exercise. The barrels are here to make that harder. Okay, does this make sense to everybody? Like most of the stuff we've been doing today, it's harder than it looks. I promise you. But it's a good one. Okay, I'll be running this range over here. Everybody's going to get a chance to do this. It's only 3 setups, so we're using the range next door as well. So let's go over there, and Joel can explain what we're doing on the other side.
Transitions. Notice we have 3 shooting areas separated by the rows of cones. In between each line of cones, you've got an array of targets. Shoot them left to right, right to left. I don't care. I'm gonna go ahead and shoot the targets, and then, well, first let's talk about vision. We've been talking about that a lot the last couple days. If there's nothing else I can impress upon you at all when you shoot on this side, it's you're gonna hit where you look for better or worse. Let me give you some examples. If you're shooting over here, and you see like these 2 targets are pretty close together, it's easy to look at these as like an array of targets. Where you bring the gun up, you just look at brown and you just kind of swing through them. Does that make sense? Or maybe, for whatever reason, some crazy reason, you look way down here. The bullets start clustering there. It's like, oh, that's the spot you were looking at. So it's very important that you pick spots you want to look at or that you want to hit. We used those white pasters earlier. We took that away. I'm very sorry. But the same thing remains, where you want to pick spots you want to hit. The next part is the physical part of transferring the gun or transitioning the gun. Just watch the gun if you would. I won't even shoot any ammo. And tell me what you notice. You're not going to hurt my feelings at all. This doesn't really look that fast or that cool. Is that fair? Okay. I'm going to try it with ammo. Ignore the shooting part. Just watch the way the gun moves between the targets, if you would. That'll be the interesting part, I think. And the speed the gun like moved was basically the same, right? And when I shoot, like when you add in the shooting, it was appropriate. It was fine. What if I won't shoot ammo. Try to like speed up the target transitions a little bit. Tell me what you notice.
Did you over transition?
Terrible, right? Like my shoulders tense up. I try to shove the gun hard between targets. And then like when it starts and stops, it bounces back and forth. There's no amount of precision. Okay, how about one more example of something that could happen? Got a lot of A's. It was nice. Notice what we've been talking about. Everyone, like, I don't really have to beat you guys up that hard, and ladies, I'm sorry, to aim hard at the far targets. But when you get these close targets, it's very tempting for someone to want to like see the color of their dot and then like aim for a while and be like, oh yeah, okay, I guess it looks like a dot now. I'll start shooting. So the speed part of this, the magic, is just looking at spots you want to hit. Let the gun come to you without any extra like shoulder tension or trying to like shove the gun anywhere. And then when I see the appropriate confirmation level I've been working on, then I just shoot. Ben, anything to add?
No, I mean, people emphasize the physicality of how fast they move the gun between targets. That's what you think, like in your head, you're like, yeah, that's what'll make me fast. But what you're seeing here is like, you don't move the gun that fast between targets. You want to move it with precision. And the bullets will go where you want. Okay, that's what's gonna matter.
Some people talk about like driving the gun with your feet, your knees, your waist, like any of that. Like, we're not doing any of that at all. Just stand there, look at spots, and just bring the gun there. There's no physicality, no amount of like using all your body to shove the gun around. It's just not productive.
It's counterproductive.
Counterproductive, yes. Okay.
Okay, so you're kind of free now. We're gonna be just running these exercises, I don't know, for a while. 60 minutes, 90 minutes, something like that. We'll see how tired people get. We're not gonna police you. Just like come over, run one of the scenarios here, then go over to the other side, kind of wait through the other people, then run there, then you come back over here if you want, then run this again. Just don't park yourself in one place. Just try to make sure you shoot everything and do everything. Yeah, and this is what we were running the rest of the day. So, cool. Yeah, all right. Let's get to it. For today. How much did we end up shooting? 400.
No idea.
500. 500. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. Review some. We worked on some really simple stuff today. Like simple, not easy stuff, but simple, right? So, working on our grip. What was the key stuff there? Anybody?
Too much tension in the firing hand.
Yeah.
Consistent.
Yeah, it's got to be consistent. A lot of people getting too much tension in the firing hand. You got to get the support hand doing something productive.
The grip's changing while you shoot, so maybe you draw and it's relaxed, then you clamp down, then you relax. Like we saw a lot of that stuff happen.
Yeah,
right?
so just understanding that takes some time. What about vision? Looking to small spots, not looking at your sight, but looking where you want your sights to go. Very challenging to actually do. And I think people don't understand how challenging it is till they start really paying attention. And they're like, oh my God, this is hard.
But once you see it, you can't unsee it.
This is true.
You're like, oh, I'm staring at my front sight. Dang it.
All right, and then when we start working on multiple targets, what did you find was the key for success there? What? Yeah, it's not about like whipping the gun between spots. It's like, hey, look for your spot. The gun will come to you. You don't try to muscle it around. You just want precision. And then what about different confirmation levels or different ways of aiming? You pick up anything there?
Reactive, predictive.
Yeah. So there's sometimes you're shooting reacting to the sight for each shot, or aggressive predictive shooting just based on training and experience. You understand how the gun's going to behave, and on lower risk targets, you want to leverage that. Yes, we didn't. Not a lot of concepts, but pretty hard to do all of these things together, I think.
Notice also when like somebody had a nice result, like, okay, that's nice. Is that as fast as you can pull the trigger? The person's like, yeah, everybody's smiling, like, no. I'm like, yeah, I didn't think so either. Like, how about we try it going like just a little bit faster? So like a 19 split to a 17 split induced a lot of issues for a lot of people in different ways.
Yeah.
We saw a trigger freeze where somebody's like, what? I'm like, you didn't release the trigger. Like, oh, like he thought his gun broke. You know what I mean? Or whatever. or pushing into the gun where it's influencing where the shots go. Maybe a lot of shoulders going up, so a lot of tension issues there. Like the way you move the gun, or just the whole body tensing up. So again, like go faster meant a lot of different things for different people. And so it gives you issues to work through.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when we're doing a drill like this, I mean, is it okay for us to put that white dot on there while we're practicing?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's training wheels.
Okay.
So it's really good to use, and then take it away, see what's happening. Maybe you need to put it back, bounce back and forth.
Okay.
Because like think about over there when you're in the target transitions, even though the white pasters weren't there, you should be looking for them, so to speak. Like looking for the perforated letter A on the target. Where would that be? Where would that be? As opposed to just looking at the big brown targets. You know what I mean?
What about practicing with an occluded dot versus competing with an occluded dot? Is there any?
Yeah, I mean, if you ever shot in Florida, like frostproof.
Right, you're talking about.
Yeah,
glare,
the sun in your
yeah.
face, the occlusion is not bad.
That's the way to go.
It's not bad.
I like it. I mean, I rarely take mine off. It's very helpful for me, yeah. I mean, if not, like we were saying earlier, like vision issues.
What was the question?
Is there an advantage to shooting, like competing with occlusion? And it's, if you're shooting into the sun, the occlusion stops your dot from washing out in the
Definitely
sunlight.
say that. Yeah.
So it's like that can't, but also if you're in a situation where both eyes can't see the target,
Right.
so like an extreme lean like this, where only one eye can get around, then the
Then
occlusion
it's
can
a
make it
problem.
impossible to shoot.
Sure.
So you got to be careful when you're using that.
Yeah.
All right, what condition do we leave the range today? You can leave this stuff out.
Absolutely.
We're going to trash all the targets if you guys would help us with that, and throw out the crap on the ground, but we'd like to police up the pasters to make sure we don't lose them.
And every single piece of brass has to be picked up before we leave.
Targets and put 'em-
All right, folks, I'm going to make 2 demonstrations for you. We'll talk about some stuff that we'll be trying to train today. We'll show you another exercise on the other side, and then we'll get going with the training. All right, so here's a cut. I'll make a couple examples, like I said. Yeah, that's one way to do it. Okay, so what difference does anybody note between those two runs?
Target order where you address the third target.
You were posting coming
Sure,
in the
I don't
second
think so, but like, what about the style, like the actual shooting part?
It was more efficient. Flowing and
Yes. So the first example is like, we don't want that. So you notice I was standing like so, feet kind of narrow. I shot some stuff, then you see me like, okay, then I took off to move, and because my feet were close together, you saw me kind of drop down and kick my foot out, push myself off, and I ran to where I wanted to be. It was like, oh, here's some targets to shoot. Stopped, then the gun came up, and then shot. Okay, that's not what we want. And the second example was what we want. Start, feet spread apart, knees bent. So think about the way you'd start if you're going to run a foot race. Like, hey, if Joel and I were going to race to the berm, I wouldn't start the foot race here standing like this. I would start like, okay, I'm getting ready to actually run. So that's what we want to see, where you stop in a position ready for the next movement.
The important thing to add with that, like the first way Ben started, where he started like this, he's like, okay, go. He's like, they like takes off. That probably would feel fast.
It
to
feels
him.
fast.
It feels like he's like, oh man, I'm really getting after it. Like after I shoot, I'm gonna spread up, like get up wide. I'm gonna really get running. And like, yeah, that looked terrible. But in your mind, it could be like, I'm really going aggressive. I'm really being fast.
Yeah. Yes,
but it was a total waste of time.
The perceived effort was high. It was not very efficient.
You're being a tryhard.
Yes. Okay. Then when I moved over towards the targets, when did I start shooting the second time?
As soon as the target presented.
Yeah, the target presented, the sight flashed on the target, and I started shooting. I was not concerned about the fact that my feet I was still walking in. I wasn't worried about that. The sights dictate to me. It's like, yeah, it looks good for this target. Like, I'm gonna start shooting. And I kind of shot into position, so to speak, okay? Does that make sense? So we want to, if possible, start connecting shooting positions together. Like yesterday when we were shooting the drill with the barrels, the gun just stayed up. Even though you're moving, it's like, yeah, the gun's gonna stay up and I'm gonna keep shooting targets if they're available. Here, it's like, I want the gun up early because I know I'm going to be shooting and I'm looking for the target. I see the target, the sight goes to my vision, and I start shooting as soon as the sight tells me. I'm not worried about stop, then shoot. We don't want that. We want to shoot our way into position. Okay? When you're training on this, we'll be focused a lot on setting your feet down gently. So I want to move into position. You can see gently I'm setting my feet down as opposed to really rough, like this. Can I shoot effectively like that? No. I want to have a little bit of finesse. So I want to come into position smooth and gentle.
Plus, you wouldn't look as cool in the second example.
Not looking cool is important.
The other thing that people, for whatever reason, get wrapped up in is this. Like, this is just a vision barrier, it's just a barrel, whatever.
Yes.
But people will get really close to this, where they have to like bring their gun back in and then come around. Or maybe nobody else has done it but me, but it's tempting to stop and shoot this target and then like keep stepping to shoot more targets. Notice Ben kept walking in on that target, and when he stopped, he could see the last target also.
Yeah.
So not stopping to shoot one target, moving, shooting to another target, kind of piecing it out. It was just one fluid motion. You just walked in and you just shot the target while he walked in.
Yeah, so we're not using this barrel as cover. That would be we'd do that differently. We're just going to use it as a vision barrier that we want to move past. Okay, does anybody have any questions about this? No? Okay, well, you'll see that these are 4 different scenarios. They're kind of similar but different. We've split the range with the lines of cones, and you're going to start on the purple cone, shoot half the targets, move opposite the vision barrier, shoot the other half. So they're all a little bit different, but the same concept. Okay, let's go over there and we'll look at the other one.
They're funny, exciting drill for you. What we have for each position, you're gonna have 2 targets. I'm gonna stand on one side of the stick, shoot each target twice, step across the stick, shoot each target twice. It sounds very simple, but when you actually do it with live ammo, it's It's actually tough to do. So I'm going to do it a couple different ways, and that'll give us stuff to talk about. Well, I got all the A's, but if this was a timed event, which USPSA is, that was way too slow, right? So notice I stood here, I shot the targets, I stepped across, I waited till I was completely stopped, and then I shot the targets. So I'll do it a different way now. Notice the difference. Like shooting targets while I step across, and when I decided to start shooting, like was when my sight said it was good to go, not when my feet. So some people get crazy thoughts in their head where like they want to shoot in between footsteps, or I'm going to step this foot down and then I'll shoot one shot and put the, like none of that crap. This drill just forces you to separate while your upper body does the shooting while my feet carry me across. Think about that in context of anything with practical shooting. You watch like the top shooters where somebody will like run over, they'll hit a couple targets, they'll move again, shoot a couple targets, whatever, and you see people just like walk through while they're hitting a bunch of different targets. You don't have to really stop. So, talking about the footwork like we do on the other side, notice when I start and stop, feet spread apart, knees bent, ready to move. Then when I step across, stop in that same stance. If I did the drill and I start, you know, like this, I have to do one of these, or when I step across, I could look down at the end of the drill, look at my feet and be like, oh, this isn't the way I want. Because if I wanted to run, you know, that way, I would have a tough time. I need to spread out or kick my foot out this way, something like that.
We want you to be in the habit of stopping, ready for the next movement. And this drill's really hard because you have to shoot you'll have to shoot into that position. So there's kind of multiple things happening at a time.
The other thing to notice, like when I step across, the gun stays mounted. So I wouldn't shoot to bring the gun down, step across, and then bring the gun back up. The gun stays up in front of my face, and then I'm just looking to the next target. Then when my sights are there, my dot or my irons, sight looks acceptable, then I just start shooting. Cool?
Does this drill make sense to everybody? Okay, so we'll be training here and on the other side, just like yesterday. We'll push you to rotate around and rotate through and make sure that you do everything. We'll work on this about 90 minutes. One thing from yesterday, the range staff doesn't like us dry firing behind the line into the berm. So we have to either use the safe area or dry fire on the line. Good, everybody? All right. They don't like it. Emotional support. You're an emotional support animal.
He is emotional. He's just a great guy. My Korean brother. All right. Time for a new fun and exciting drill. This one is, this one's called Designated Target. This is a Professor Kim drill.
Yay.
I know, yay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one target that I'm going to shoot.
Just the steel.
Okay.
Just use the steel.
You talked me into it.
Yeah.
You can use the steel?
It's going to be confusing if not.
Saw what I did was I picked one target to shoot first, which is when I chose the steel target. I picked a different target in the array, then went back to the steel, different target steel, different target steel. So what does this actually teach you? There's a bunch of different target transitions here and a bunch of different variety of target where they've got partial, a steel target, an open target, whatever. This is just kind of a diagnostic tool to look at all the different types of target transitions. Notice we've got different setups here. They have some like wide transitions at the end, close transitions here, whatever. You just kind of look for trends and you pick apart to see like what type of target you struggle on. For instance, maybe shooting at this close target, we see like hits all over the place. Be like, oh, like the target's big and easy, just you're not picking a spot. Maybe you're not looking at the center of the steel. We see you firing, you know, a lot of misses there. Maybe we see you, if you're shooting this way, going that way, we see you take your eyes off the target earlier and the hits start trailing off. Like all kinds of things could happen. It could be a multitude of issues. This is just to diagnose target transitions overall. Ben, anything to add?
You'll notice the targets are at different degrees, different angles of swing between each other. How many of you noticed a problem when the targets are really close together? It was hard to get your eye off of your sight when you went between them. But if the targets are spread far apart, it's pretty easy. Like kind of your head has to come off the sight in order to find the target. So you're gonna notice stuff like that, and that's what we're looking for. So you'll notice where you have a weak point, and then we would do further training on that spot. Does that make sense to everybody? If you're shooting this like Joel is that, hey, just go faster, and see if you build tension or if you start connecting to your sight, or most commonly, you'll stop picking out spots on target and just shoot at color. So we don't want that stuff, obviously. Does it make sense to everybody? All right, let's go next door. It's over here working on multiple targets. I'll make a couple of examples for you. One way to do it. Okay, so what differences did you see there between those two runs?
So the first one,
Yeah, so the first run, I'm exaggerating a lot, but a lot of times when people are shooting this close target, they'll see their sight dancing, and that just pulls them in. You'll see a slight posture change where you see their head kind of tilts and you're like, oh, they're just staring at their red dot. You're seeing that thing dancing. We don't want that. You know, obviously, we want you to bring the gun up to your vision like that, and not tilt your head in or get pulled onto the dot. That's why we're shooting 6 rounds on this target. It's not just to waste ammo. It's like when you're shooting, you know, rapid fire at this close target, you might tense up your hand, your arms, your shoulders. Anything like that is not going to be helpful. And then, of course, getting your vision pulled onto your red dot, not helpful. We want to not do those things. So that's why we're shooting 6 rounds on that close target. And then you notice the second run, when I shot the target in the back, it was effortless. Like the gun I just looked over there. It was like the shooting never stopped. I looked at a spot. The gun went to where I looked because I wasn't tensed up. It just went where I wanted, you know, cooperated. And as soon as I see that red flash, start shooting. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? That's kind of what we're working through here. Now there's a couple of other issues that might happen. I'll make another example for you. What did I do differently there?
pause.
Right, so I didn't just pause. All I did was in my head, I was like, I'll just see the dot come back. So it was like, you might call that follow through or something. We don't want that. We want you to, as soon as you're done shooting, you just disregard, you stop looking at that target and look to the one behind it. However, I'll make another example. What did I do wrong there?
Transition too early.
Yeah, so what I did is I've got 4 or 5 shots done, then I shift my eyes, and what's the gun gonna do? It's gonna follow. So it's gotta be the instant you're done shooting, no sooner, no later, then you shift your vision. Okay? If when you get in a hurry, it makes this very, very hard to do, of course. Okay, but that's what we're looking for. This drill's good because it's fast shooting, it's gonna build a lot of tension, and it'll make this harder. Okay, one thing I want to point out, the targets are just spaced in depth. There's really no swing between them, and that's really going to highlight, like when you get tense in your shoulders, the guns, it just won't go where you want, and it doesn't need to move that far. So, yes, that's what we're working on here. You'll notice also 2 of these setups, I have the white aiming references down, some of them not. If you want to train with those a little bit, use those, use that side. If not, don't. It's nice to have a reference point, you know, sometimes not. It'll help highlight, you know, what you're doing wrong. Does that make sense to everybody?
With vision, talking specifically about the back target, notice like when we're doing the drill over there with the stick where you step across, shoot the targets, it was really easy to swing the gun over and look at the big brown target. So it's super important to find the exact spot you want to hit on that back target, regardless if it was a white paster or not, but not just shooting, kind of swinging your gun out there and firing for effect.
Yeah, actually, I'll show you probably the most common thing you'll see when we really push you to go fast. Back up, Bill.
I wanted to live dangerously.
So let's say I'm really pushing to go fast. Now watch what happens here. Okay, so all I did differently was look at brown. And the hits were just like wherever. I mean, they're on the brown, but they weren't where I wanted because I was intentionally not picking a spot.
That's one of those videos you'd post on Instagram, just not showing the targets.
Right, that would be a good.
We just show you shooting.
That would be a good one for Instagram. Now, interestingly, you can still get a good result if I shoot the same pace and I drive my vision to the center of the target. I'm going to get a totally different result. I mean, like, so tightly clustered here. My vision landed a little bit to the right on the target in the back, and that's, I mean, that's really aggressive pacing. So that'd be a good pace for me to train at, to try to get my eyes to grab spots that I want as I'm shooting this drill. Does this make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. All right, cool. We'll get back to it. So I'll run this side, Joel will run that side.
I am going to make a couple examples for you, and I'm not going to make it subtle which one is the good one, which one's the bad one. That was kind of lame. Try it a different way. See a big difference, right? A couple things should really stand out at you. Notice we've been beating you guys up about your stance all day. Standing like this, then I'm like, hey, I want to go fast. Spread out, get low, and then I like decide to go. In my brain, it feels like, man, I'm really being aggressive. I'm really, you know, punching out and going to work. But in reality, it's pretty lame. It was a lot of wasted energy, right? Watch my shoulders. Like I go way down to go. Instead, notice I shot when I was ready to go. No part of me goes back this way. I just start running in the way I want to go. I ran as hard as I could. When you get there, I mounted the gun, and I had the gun up, and I was ready to shoot. Like what we were doing in the drill earlier with the stick, and the drill on this bay where my sights tell me when it's time to start shooting. And notice I was just walking in shooting that target. I didn't stop. And then I stopped far enough over that I could see the last target also. Compared to the first run, the wrong run, where I kind of jogged over here or skipped, whatever, stop, shoot a target because I saw it, and then I stepped some more so I could shoot another target. This all makes sense? So I'm starting here, feet spread apart, knees bent, ready to move. When it's time to move, I run as hard as I can. My gun's up and mounted. As soon as the sights look appropriate, I start shooting, and then I come over and stop in a way that I can get to the last target. Cool? Anything to add, Ben?
Oh, that's good. That's what we want.
That is it. And then
It's
just
hard to do.
stay away from the vision barrier, just like before.
Do you
Yeah.
have any tips on how you can like aggressively and easily exit? Like, let's say, do you put a lot of weight on your left foot?
No, we want 50-50 weight distribution when you, as a habit, when you stop. So what you'll find is if your feet are nice and wide, like you will move out of position efficiently because you won't even be inclined to shift your feet to take off. And that's like the best practice, probably the best way to do it.
And which foot starts first?
Okay, I'll give you in theory, but then I'll tell you in practice, okay? In theory, what we want to see is you push off with the lead foot. So lead foot goes first, you get a little bit of momentum, and then this second step is critical as you're going to build up a lot of speed, you know, as you move your mass over that leg. Okay, you want to get your hips pointed in the direction you want to go. Okay, that's the theory. Like, don't worry about that. In practice, get your stance really wide and move as aggressively as possible. That'll get you like 95% of where you want to go. Like the actual technique about which foot does what is minimal in terms of the outcome. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. All right. Let's head over to the other side.
It looks like a lot like a USPSA stage. You'll all get to shoot this, probably more than once. I'll shoot it for you and we'll talk about it. You're going to see the same themes that we've been talking about though already. Just going to try to put those into practice. Yeah, watch yourself there, buddy. So we'll start heels on this rear fault line like so. Okay, so the stuff that we've already talked about over the last day and a half, what things did you see being employed here?
All of them.
Yeah, pretty much all of them. I didn't look super relaxed. I didn't look super tense. I actually looked fairly relaxed. Yeah. I'd look at a spot, the gun would go there. Could you tell the difference between the targets where I was reacting to the dot for each bullet and the ones where I was seeing the flash of red and shooting too? Yeah, you could tell there was definitely a difference, and it was just based on the target, distance, and difficulty. Yeah, it's like that's what we're looking for. You look nice and relaxed, and you just flow through there, looking at spots, and the gun will go there. The gun was up a lot of the time. Like if I'm a couple steps away from where I'm going to be shooting, the gun was up at my eye line, looking for the target. You really want to see that. Does that make sense to everybody? So we'll shoot this and you'll really understand your technique, I think, a lot better after you shoot this. Probably you'll do like 2 runs and then we'll paste and then run another shooter. Make sense to everybody? Okay, we'd like you to start over on that side. So shoot that drill, then the first 4 will come over here and then we'll start rotating through. Sound good? Okay, cool. But he wrote about 2/3 of it.
What do you do?
What do you do? Okay, we talk about some stuff we went over.
Well, let's talk about the last couple days of shooting. We shot a bunch. It would be fun if we all had a lot of ammo and we could just go to the range and shoot this much every single day. It's probably not realistic for most of you, right? So what should your training look like going from here? Like I said yesterday, you have habits or had habits, the ways you do things, and it was tough to make a change on the spot over 2 days, right? By the end, everyone should have some takeaways of things they want to change about their training. They don't like maybe the way they hold the gun. They don't like the way they stand when they stop. Whatever that could be.
A lot of things.
A lot of things. So how do you actually make a change? Making a list would be a good idea when you go home. A couple things you want to work on. And then notice there's like dry fire components to all the drills we did. So a good idea that I think is if you get on the daily dry fire thing or a couple days a week, you could do dry fire, working on just these drills that we did. 5 minutes a drill, something like that, a couple drills a day. If you dry fire 15 minutes a day, 2 or 3 times a week, maybe 4, depending on how you feel about it, that will be, that'll go a long way towards your training. Then when you come to the range, setting up just 1 or 2 drills, shooting maybe half your ammo on each one, getting some observations, noticing the things that are happening, whether they're good or bad or new issues crop up. Then you can take that back to your dry fire training, continue to work on it, then come back to the range and check it. The cycle just never ends.
Yeah, so one thing I want to really highlight is a lot of you have done a lot of training or a lot of shooting, but not a lot of competition shooting. Is that true of about half the group, I think? Okay, so one thing that we did differently here was you'll notice you were pushed really hard on everything we were doing. Failure or mistakes was not stigmatized at all, right? That was not a problem. Within the bounds of safety, we wanted people to push really hard. Making mistakes was not a problem, but we wanted to build awareness so you could start to understand what was happening. Is that everybody's tracking that? Yeah. You notice how much more quickly you'd pick stuff up when you push hard that way, right? So I would think about that when you're doing your own training, whether it's live fire or dry fire, like pushing yourself really hard and making mistakes, but just the goal being to understand why that's happening. That's how you're going to improve.
Or to take what Ben said one step further, if you dry fire and you're so happy with the results, you are definitely missing the boat.
Definitely doing it wrong.
Absolutely, like 100%. So it should be like, oh man, I wish my grip was a little bit different. Oh, my sights didn't stop right where I wanted them to. I'm looking at the sight. I'm not picking out spot. Whatever it is. So let's say at a high level, still, whenever like each of us were dry firing, I'm always I'm perpetually dissatisfied with myself. It's like, man, this could have been a little bit better. Oh, I wish I could have improved that. Like every single rep, always looking to improve.
Yep.
That's the jam. Because if you ever go out and like, man, I'm doing so good. This looks so nice. Like, you're just not gonna get any better. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, that's true. Does anybody have any questions for us?
When are you coming back?
Whenever you want. Honestly, like
Yeah.
have gun, will travel. I'm a total mercenary, so if people want to do classes, I'm always down.
A mercenary figuratively.
Figuratively, yeah.
Okay, just to be clear.
Yeah. A gigolo, is that a better term?
Yeah.
I like that.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. And most of the drills we did are repeated in that book. So, yeah. All right. Thank you. What do we got to do for cleanup? I think just police up the trash and throw away the targets, and we'll be happy. Everything, all the equipment's going to stay out.